index is going to be in unhealthy ranges across most of the St. Louis area.
That is Missouri's Department of Natural Resources Air Quality Analysis Section Chief Josh Vanderveen. In the last 2 weeks, the air quality index for the region has been hovering around good and moderate, but Vanderveen says Canadian wildfires have caused hazy conditions and that index to soar to a level red. Ozone levels alone are forecasted to be in the orange range, which is considered unhealthy for some. And of course, we do have an air quality alert in effect through midnight tonight. We will see some hazy sunshine throughout the day. Low humidity, though, a high of 81 degrees. Clear to partly cloudy and cool tonight with an overnight low near 60. And then for tomorrow and Sunday, pleasant with sunshine and some clouds, highs between 80 and 84. Right now, we have sunny skies, 80 degrees in Florissant, 77 in St. Peter's, 78 downtown at the Arch. I'm Megan Lynch, KMOX News.
This is the Gashouse Gang on 104.1 FM KMOX. Sponsored by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin comfort dealer. And by Anderson Hospital, a Newsweek World's Best Hospital. Now, the Gashouse Gang on KMOX.
Gashouse Gang this afternoon on KMOX. Nate Gatter with you in for Chris Ranji, Mike Claiborne alongside. And for the first half hour, Matt Pauley is with us as well. Talking about the Cardinals trade deadline moves, the 3 departures, Ryan Helsley, Steven Matz, and Phil Maton in the last couple of days. And the Cardinals getting set for post-trade deadline life to begin this evening against San Diego, an 8:40 first pitch. Matt will have the pregame for you here, as well as Sports Open Line this evening on KMOX. Matt, let's start with you since we only have you for the first half hour. Overall, how did the Cardinals' moves in the last couple of days align with your expectations?
I thought it was the minimum that they were going to do because we knew that they were going to move those 3 expiring contracts. I always thought there was a possibility that maybe they would do something more. Maybe there's a position player with control or a JoJo Romero with control that they would also move. But I think we learned 2 things. Thing number 1 is the focus for this organization right now is beyond 2026 when they're making these moves. And then second, anything that could be kind of handed off to Chaim Bloom was going to be handed off to Chaim Bloom. You have expiring contracts. That's John Mozeliak's responsibility. But I think they wanted to keep anything that went beyond this year and be able to let Chaim Bloom make those decisions.
Claibs, I think that's an interesting point that Matt makes about the 2026 versus beyond element, because one of the messages we've consistently heard is that the idea of this transitional year was to retool and be as competitive as possible, as quickly as possible, that this wasn't going to be a full-on rebuild. Still, there are pieces on this roster that could make the ball club competitive next year. Certainly, they've been competitive for most of this year, but it does seem like at least the deadline moves, we'll see what the offseason moves look like once Chaim Bloom fully has the keys, but at least the deadline moves were a little more geared toward a 2027 or beyond kind of at least retooling rather than just a reload for next year.
Well, I think that it also says this. They want to make sure they're going to be good when they are good, if you understand what I'm saying here, with regard to saying this is not going to be a quick fix. We want to make sure that the farm system is deep where we can go out and get other players if we need them. You want to make sure that you have players that are going to be competitive at the big league level, but also ascending players within your organization that you feel like you can have for years to come and have control and make sure that you have a reasonable payroll. And we don't know what this is going to look like after 26 because, everybody talks about a lockout. So maybe the landscape's going to change on that front too. So the key here is to make sure you have legitimate players that can actually play, not suspects. And we're going to have to evaluate who these people are.
Matt, I think that's a good point, especially because we've been having this conversation about how much control does Chaim Bloom have at various points, right? How much did he have at the beginning of the season? How much does he have now at the deadline? And then obviously he will have full control at the end of this year when John Mozeliak departs his position. The fact that the messaging has, to me, changed a little bit, or at least the deadline doesn't line up with we're looking at being contenders in 2026, the way that maybe we would have been hearing a year ago or at the end of last season. and this is a little bit more of a rebuild, or at least a little bit more in that direction than we previously thought it was going to be. Does that indicate at all that Chaim Bloom's mindset was a little different, that when he dug in and evaluated the system and really got his boots on the ground, he said, I see this as more a multi-year thing?
It's an interesting question. I think deep down the organization has always kind of known that it was going to be something that would take a little while. I think at the same time, they did attempt to serve two gods, and really they did. They have been a competitive team this year. They've spent some of the year in a playoff spot. I know the last few weeks has not been good, and they have fallen back to 500 after being 9 games over 500 just about a month ago. But they have been able to do the work that they've been trying to do throughout the minor league system, while at the same time be competitive at the big leagues. We'll see what it looks like here moving forward with all these bullpen pieces that have left. I'm kind of excited to see what some of these younger pieces are going to be able to do with a larger role. But I think that they've always known that for them to get back into a championship window, it was going to take a little bit of time, where at the same time, I think they thought that they can be a team that can at the very least flirt with the playoffs while they go through this. And, Oliver Marmol talked the other day about not wanting to be in the middle anymore. That's where they've been. And the ceiling for this team has been fighting for a playoff spot. They want to be more than that. So if they can continue to kind of fight for a playoff spot while they're doing all this other work underneath, that's kind of the goal, I think. Maybe they could communicate that a little bit more overtly, but I feel like that communication is starting to come out right now.
You mentioned Oliver Marmol. I think that's an interesting point, because in some ways it feels, and Claves, maybe you have thoughts on this, but in some ways it feels like he's getting a little bit hamstrung by this. And I think he's managed this club pretty well this year. And he's in a position where the team is just not ready, for good reasons. The front office is just not ready to give him more resources in order to try to make this a playoff team, or maybe next year a division championship team, that kind of caliber club. And ultimately he can only, use the resources that are at his disposal at any given time.
No, you're right. I think he's the right guy for this situation, because as a young manager, and now he's this is his 4th year, he has been able to teach. He has a good staff. They've been able to really get some guys to improve their game. But I think as a manager, you say, hey, give me a chance. Give me some pieces. Give me some talent, and who knows where we can go. So now we're all on the same page of saying, all right, here's who we are, here's what we have, and this is what we need. And now we're going to try and grow all this at the same time. It's going to be a challenge for sure, but I think they have the right components in place, starting with the manager and knowing what it looked like and what it needs to look like is where I think he's going to move forward on.
6 prospects in total coming back for Matz, Helsley, and Maton. Could be a player to be named later, or just the cash for Eric Fetty. How pleased are we overall with the return that the Cardinals got for these guys that they pretty much had to move?
Well, for me, I think they're all still suspects for a lot of different reasons. They're back-end guys within the organizations as far as value is concerned, as far as their ranking. So we don't know who they are. And, we have bodies right now. We don't know if these guys can play or not. And we look at how other organizations value their players with regard to rankings. And do they line up with what we expect out of players? I think that's something we got to pay attention to as well, on how those organizations have developed players in the past. So it's going to be a wait and see. We're going to have to wait for a while just to see who can do what. And, we have to make sure we're not getting players like we already have. And I know one of the guys, it was said to me last night, the young man from Boston is maybe the right-handed version of Nolan Gorman. So I'm saying to myself, well, was this a lateral move, or did we really get somebody to improve what we have already? So, it's going to take some time. It's going to take some patience, and it's going to take some people to truly evaluate who these players are and what do you see in them in a year or two.
It would be disingenuous for me to sit here and try to break down what they have. That's not I don't know a lot about these guys, but I can look at rankings and I can see that they have added depth to their prospect group, because Baez comes in MLB pipeline slots him at number 6. The Dome kid slots in at number 15. The player that Clibbs was just talking about, Blaze Jordan, he slots in at number 19. And I thought this was interesting. Mason Molina, one of the 2 pitchers that they get back from the Rangers, he slots in at 26 for MLB pipeline. Nate, the other guy that got Hales, they were right next to each other in the Rangers top 30, and the other guy doesn't make it to the Cardinals top 30. So the bottom of the Cardinals top 30 evidently is a little bit stronger than what the Rangers had. So you add some length to the prospect rankings. You add a little bit of depth inside of the organization, and you get some lottery tickets. And I think what we've learned right now, Chaim Bloom is going to go after guys who can do some things that are unique. He's going to try to find guys with power, both from a pitching standpoint, from a hitting standpoint, and get as many of those type of guys in the organization as possible. And if some of them develop to a point where they become impact players, that's great. But just go get as many of those guys as you possibly can and let player development get their hands on them and see which of these guys can really turn into something.
I totally agree with that second point that you made about the fact that since Chaim Bloom has had a stronger voice, and again, we don't know exactly how strong it is at any given point this year. We know that it's stronger and stronger and that it's going to be the leading voice in the room by the end of the season. He has had a clear blueprint for the kind of players that he wants to bring in. To your point about the raw abilities, the skill sets, especially the power arms, but the power bats as well. And it's nice to see that level of consistency and a philosophy, regardless of how it might work out or not. It's good to see that he has a real mindset about what he wants to bring in. At the same time, I was kind of smiling while you were talking about the ranking difference in those Rangers prospects at the back end of the Cardinals top 30 as compared to where they were right next to each other at the back end of the Rangers top 30, not because it isn't valuable to have depth in the system, including down there in the 20s and into the theoretically 30s and 40s where the second Rangers guy would slot in. But in some ways, maybe it's just the cynicism of the conversations we've been having the last couple of years. What I'm hearing is more average to good and not great, right? Like the story of the Cardinals to me at the major league level and in the minor league level is having a million guys who you could say are in that 10 to 40 range and not having enough guys who are bona fide top 5 prospects, bona fide all-star or close to all-star caliber players who you write in the lineup in pen every night.
Yeah, and you have to take this into account. You know, we traded guys who would be deemed rentals, expiring contracts. So why is a team going to give you some of their top prospects for guys they're going to rent for 2 months? And maybe they re-sign them. I don't know. But I think the purpose was for them to be able to help the team now. So why would another team give you somebody who they think is major league ready next year or, sooner for a guy that you may keep for 2 months? So we have to take that into account in understanding that, yeah, we got more bodies, but, they're not top end bodies. They're guys who probably need more time, or they're guys who may not ever play in the big leagues, but they're bodies, and maybe that creates competition within the organization.
It's a good point because, I mean, really, Ryan Helsley was the only guy that the Cardinals could have still gotten something for if they hadn't traded him now at the deadline and having the qualifying offer attached. But even that could have been a little bit tricky. I mean, I don't think it's the consensus, but Bob Nightingale last week on these airwaves was saying he didn't think the Cardinals would even give a qualifying offer to Helsley because $22-23 million would be too much for them to stomach for 1 year of a closer when they're not, as it looks,
you're not going to go anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not confident that 2026, you're big time contenders. I think they probably would have because it's just a 1 year deal, but it's a good point. We don't know. And certainly if the Cardinals were not planning to give him a qualifying offer, they had to get something back for him. And they did get some things, including Baez, who does slot in as the number 6 prospect in the system. Take a break. Gashouse Gang continues after this. 104.1 FM KMOX.
Diabetes, high blood pressure, anxiety meds, everyone's on them. If you're a 40-year-old male, maybe a bit porky, and you may even have type 2 diabetes, $1 million of term life insurance may only cost you about $100 a month. Call Term Provider. Speak with Big Lou at 800-770-0850. Big Lou will find a term life policy for you even if you have type 2 diabetes, are overweight, or have high blood pressure. Term Provider has helped thousands of people like you who think they can't afford term life insurance to buy $1 million of affordable term life for you. All you need to do is call Big Lou at 800-770-0850. Lou will make sure the scales are tipped in your favor. Call 800-770-0850. Big Lou will answer your call and work to fit you into a term life policy that you can afford. Remember, Big Lou's like you. He's on meds too. For affordable term life insurance, call 800-770-0850. 800-770-0850.
Summer is here. Time to enjoy baseball, barbecues, and the shade of your trees. When it comes to tree care, call the certified arborist at Gamma Tree Experts. Hi, I'm Tim Gamma. Protect your valuable trees from storm damage or devastating insects such as the emerald ash borer. Knowledge and quality are hallmarks of our reputation. For pruning, spraying, fertilization, or removals, call Gamma Tree Experts today at 314-725-6159 or visit us at gammatree.com. Your trees deserve the best care.
Feel like your paycheck barely keeps up with your life? At the Financial Freedom Seminar, learn how real people are building passive income and retiring early using real estate. It's all happening live in St. Louis with Lifestyles Unlimited, September 27th and 28th. You'll leave with a step-by-step plan to change your future. Text radio to 88007. That's September 27th and 28th. Text radio to 88007. That's RADIO to 88007 now.
Named one of Newsweek's world's best hospitals for 2025, Anderson Hospital is your hospital for life, delivering exceptional, compassionate care to families across the Metro East. From emergency services to specialized treatments, our dedicated team supports your health at every stage. Experience world-class care close to home. Discover the difference at andersonhospital.org.
KMOX is everywhere. 1120 a.m. Streaming live on the Odyssey app. And now at 104.1 FM.
Gashouse game continues. Nate Gatter in for Chris Ranji. Mike Claiborne is with us, and Matt Pauley for at least one more segment. Let's talk a little bit about what the rest of this season looks like, right? The trade deadline inspires us to talk about what does next season look like, what does the season after, at least for teams that are sellers like the Cardinals were. It inspires looking to the future. But we still have 2 months worth of baseball here to play. The Cardinals are still a team that's above 500 for whatever that's worth, despite having sold off the key bullpen arms that they did. They're going to have to fill those slots in the bullpen. So we're going to see maybe not new guys, but we're going to see more opportunities for some guys who have previously been fringe, maybe on the shuttle back and forth between St. Louis and Memphis, going to get a more extended run out. And we're going to continue to see, the quote unquote runway that's available for these guys for the rest of this season. Maybe from both of you, what's kind of the top 1, 2, 3 kind of things you have your eye on for the remainder of this year, whether it's for this season itself or more likely for what it tells us about the future?
Well, that's a good question because, we've kind of had this year of evaluation, and I think we kind of determine who can do what and what you need down the road. And I'm anxious to see what the rest of the pitching looks like. We need to address that first and foremost. And, the Memphis shuttle has been good to the Cardinals so far this year, but it's very thin. It's very fragile right now. And Ali made a point the other day that the John King injury was the first one of the pitching staff for basically the whole season. That's unheard of. So at some point, if somebody else goes down, then they're going to really have to push a panic button because they're going to bring up 3 guys that are going to be part of this pitching squad. And if one of those guys goes down, I don't know who's left in Memphis who can actually make a major league contribution. So that's the one thing I'm going to be paying close attention to. I think if you look at every position, I think right now the intriguing position now is left field and what that looks like down the road. Lars Nootbaar has been a guy who, when he's healthy, has been okay, but he hasn't been healthy a lot. Now you want to put Herrera out in the outfield, which has been so far so good, but you're putting him out there because of his bat. I think every other position on this team has been addressed in one way or another. You can look at the catching situation and you feel like there's going to be competition there with Crooks and some of the other young catchers they have in the organization when spring training rolls around next year. But everywhere else, I think I'll tell you what else is going to be important. Where is Weatherholt going to play? what position is he going to play when he comes to the big leagues? You know, you have an all-star second baseman in Donovan. You have more guys named Nolan that playing third base than you need. So, you know, and you already have a shortstop in Mason Wynn. So I think that's going to be the most intriguing question. A, do you bring him up this year? And B, where do you play him?
It's the pitching thing for me, because you have three really important pieces from your bullpen that are now gone. And so often we've said this year, where would this team be without Phil Maton? Well, we're about to find out, because he's not around anymore. To Claves' point, I love this young group of relievers that's been churning between the Cardinals and Memphis, the Andre Granillos, the Matt Svensons, the Gordon Graceffos. I'm excited to see what Ryan Fernandez is going to look like coming back. I think he's going to be one of those players who's back with the team tonight, and we saw how good he can be last year. Earlier this year, it wasn't very good. They just planted him at Memphis for an extended amount of time, and he really got things going, and he's been pitching well. So the challenge for this team is for these young group of guys. They're all going to be given larger opportunities. Jojo Romero will probably be the first guy for the ninth inning, but I got to think there's going to be some mixing and matching, and you're going to give some of these guys, especially the guys with closers experience in the minor leagues, the Riley O'Briens and the Matt Svensons and guys like that, they're going to get some ninth inning opportunities at some point in time. Now, when you have those games where you're looking for a fresh arm, there might not be a fresh arm, but also there's a lot of 40-man flexibility right now. They've got 4 open spots on the 40-man, and really it could be 6 open spots, because they've got 2 injured guys at AAA on the 40-man roster who are done for the year, who if they wanted to put onto the 60-day, they could do that. It would just cost them some money and some big league service time. So they've got all these 40-man roster spots to do some things with. That's going to create some flexibility for them. Yesterday when John Mozeliak spoke, I thought it was really interesting. The thing that I picked out more than anything else that he said was, hey, you know what? Over the next 2 months, we're likely to have a little bit of a churn on the 40-man roster. So that means they are prepared to make some even more moves here between the end and the season, maybe moving on from some players. There will be other teams that fall out of contention who are kind of buyers here at the deadline, and then they fall out of contention and they're going to try to save a few bucks, and they're going to designate some players, and there's still going to be an opportunity to pick up those type of players. So I don't know. I don't think the Cardinals have much of a chance for the postseason. They're not completely buried. The San Diego Padres went all in. They look so much better, but that doesn't guarantee anything. You got to actually go out and play. Cincinnati bought a little bit. Those are the 2 teams in front of the Cardinals. But I'm very intrigued by what we're going to see over the next 2 months.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. First of all, what Claves mentioned about the pitching staff and how there have been so few injuries. I wonder if the Cardinals would have had to deal with a lot less blowback over the last month or so on the Michael McGreevy situation if somebody in the rotation would have gotten hurt at any point between the beginning of the season and now, as you would obviously expect to do. It wasn't totally unreasonable for the Cardinals to come into this season saying, look, McGreevy's our 6th guy. He's the odd one out, but somebody will get hurt, and he'll come up and he'll fill that spot in the rotation for as long as there is one, and there just never was one. For the guys who have been shuttling, I also wonder if you're more likely to see the best out of them, just thinking human nature, how difficult it would be to perform at the major league level, feeling like I'm going to get 2, 3, maybe best case 4 or 5 appearances. And then if I have a bad one, or if I just am worn out, I'm going to get sent back to Memphis and replaced. Some of those guys now are going to get, for the first time in their careers, to feel secure in the fact that they're going to be a big leaguer for 2 months. And they're going to get 2 months of that without worrying about they're getting to get called into the manager's office and sent back to Memphis anytime. Have to think that makes you a little bit more comfortable. The last thing I want to touch on, and there are only a couple of minutes left in the segment, so maybe this is a bad time for it, but we got a comment on the YouTube stream that said the Cardinals need to find a manager to manage the players, not be their friend, and make excuses for their bad play. Is there any evidence to suggest that Ollie Marmol is more interested in being the player's friend than managing the players, or that he's out there making excuses for their bad play other than not dogging on them in public in a way that you can't if you're a manager of any human beings?
Well, that obviously that person has no clue what they're talking about. If there's one thing I've known about Ollie, is that he's fair. He handles things internally, where maybe because he doesn't rip a guy publicly doesn't mean he hasn't had a conversation with that individual. So that person is truly so far off base, they don't even throw over. He's already picked off. He has no clue what he's talking about.
Claves, you've been around a lot of managers. Is there a manager who's better at across the board, every single player in that clubhouse knows exactly where they stand?
That's a good question. As I think back, Tony obviously was very good at it. Joel Quenneville, when he coached the Blues, was that same way. Mike Martz was that guy who you knew where you stood. So there have been some guys, and I would put Ollie in that category of being very transparent. Maybe as transparent as one can be considering the situation, because the guys I just mentioned all have better teams than Ollie's been saddled with. So I think his job is even more challenging, but he's responded, I think, in a very professional manner where guys do like playing for him.
And that's what it's not to interrupt, Nate, but that's what players want. Players don't want a friend in the manager. Players want to know where they stand. This is their career. This is how they put food on the table. They want to get better. What they want to know is exactly where they stand, what they can get better at. And there's a lot of things that a lot of Cardinals players can get better at, and I think that is communicated to them. So yeah, I push back on that comment from JD just as much as Claves does.
Yeah, I think it's telling too that that's one of the worst criticisms you could possibly levy at Oliver Marmol, that the three names that Claves compared him to were Tony La Russa, Mike Martz, and Joel Quenneville. If you're in that category, I think in that regard as a manager, then Ollie is doing just fine in that particular regard. I don't think I would consider criticizing him over that in particular. Matt, we appreciate you a lot for being here for these first couple of segments. We got the voice of the Cardinals, John Rooney, coming up next. Don't go anywhere. Gashouse Gang continues on 104.1 FM KMOX.
Wake up informed. Wake up empowered. Wake up to Total Information AM, your morning must.
Hi, this is Debbie Monterey.
I'm Megan Lynch.
This is Tom Ackerman.
From local news to breaking headlines to weather, traffic, and the stories that matter most, we've got you covered before your first sip of coffee. Expert analysis, bright perspectives from the people you trust. Total Information AM. Your day starts here. Mornings beginning at 5 on 104.1 FM KMOX.
That baby's gone! Cardinals fans, FanDuel Sports Network is your home of the Cardinals.
That ball was mashed.
And there are more ways to watch this season.
Holy cow!
Subscribe directly to FanDuel Sports Network to stream the Cardinals without blackouts.
How about that play?
Or watch through a TV provider.
Incredible!
Including DirecTV, Spectrum, Xfinity, Fubo, and more.
He got it!
Learn more at cardinals.com/TV.
Ball game! That couldn't have worked out any better for the Cardinals.
It doesn't take a lot to make a big difference.
That's why we've teamed up with Jerry Kelly Heating and Cooling to bring you 100 acts of kindness.
For the next 6 months, the Chris and Amy Show is challenging you to spread kindness in simple, meaningful ways. No big budget needed.
Write a thank you note, help a neighbor, surprise someone with a smile. It all counts.
Let's prove that kindness is contagious. Share your acts with us by using hashtag 100KindActs.
Because a little kindness goes a long way.
Life insurance. Why are you putting it off? Can't afford it? Too much hassle? Think you don't need it? There's lots of excuses for putting off life insurance. But if you weren't there, who would pay the mortgage and other bills? With Ethos, you could be covered in 10 minutes and boom, family protected. Ethos, fast and easy online term life insurance. Up to $2 million in coverage with no medical exam. Some policies as low as $1 a day. Answer a few health questions and get your free quote at ethos.com/radio. That's ethos.com/radio.
The success you've already had matters at University of Maryland Global Campus because we're a school for real life. An accredited state university, UMGC lets you earn up to 90 credits toward a bachelor's for prior learning and relevant life and work experience, or transfer up to 12 credits toward a master's. We offer affordable tuition and online and hybrid courses. Classes start August 13th. Apply now and save with no application fee. Learn more at umgc.edu. Certified to operate in Virginia by Chev.
Now, the John Rooney Conversation on KMOX, sponsored by Missouri Farm Bureau Insurance. We are Missouri Farm Bureau Insurance. And if you're a Missourian, we're for you.
The John Rooney Conversation now on the Gashouse Gang. Nate Gatter in for Chris Ranji. Mike Claiborne is here, and the voice of the Cardinals, John Rooney, is with us. It feels a little more like I'm the guest now because a couple of guys are in San Diego. Only one's in St. Louis. John, how you doing?
You have time to catch a flight and get out here for the game tonight, though, Nate, so get with it.
Oh, man, wouldn't that be something? Well, first pitch tonight against the Padres at 8:40 Central Time. John, let's first talk about sort of the immediate fallout of the trade deadline. Obviously, it's a very different-looking Cardinals bullpen now for the last couple of months of the season. How do you anticipate it changes in the short term?
Well, I'll be interested to see what Oliver has to say about what they're going to do with the end of the game and what Dusty Blake has in mind of giving these young pitchers opportunities. And I think we're going to see Ryan Fernandez. I hope that he'll be back here shortly, if not today, because he has had a pretty steady season at AAA, and they counted on him a lot. But beyond that, getting a good look at Graceffo and Granillo and maybe Roycroft. They still have a lot in mind for Roycroft with the good arm that he has, Claves, but it's just a matter of making adjustments and executing and not letting the world spin too fast for him, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you, Judd. What we saw of him in spring training and the early part of the season gives you credence that he has a lot to offer a ball club. The other thing, though, I think is a plus in this situation with these young pitchers having a chance to pitch at the big league level. They've all done it before this year. I mean, they've all had some seasoning this season. So it's not like we're going to drop these guys in San Diego and say, all right, go get them, big leaguer. They've already been here. So they have an understanding of how things work. Now they're just going to have more time to experience it. And I think that's a plus for them. Hello.
Oh, well, I thought Nate was jumping in here with another comment, but it is a plus where they're going to get a chance to go out there and perform. And we knew that there was a better than 50-50 chance that the Cardinals were going to be dealing Matz and dealing Helsley and Maton because they are free agents. And looking to stock up for the future, it's not a bad idea. And it will help if we can get Nootbaar and Gorman back in for the lineup to score some runs for the pitchers. And it will help if we get some consistent starts from the pitchers. And that's what I'm looking forward to the last 2 months.
Speaking of starts, John, Matthew Liberatore on the mound this evening. Obviously, he's had a very nice season and solidified himself in the starting rotation. But at the same time, he's now accumulating a number of innings that he never has before in his career, and still a couple of months left in this season. What are you looking for from him, whether it's tonight or over the remaining 2 months, to see how he handles this level of season-long workload?
Well, Nate, I think he looked pretty strong the last time out and didn't quite execute the way he wanted, but seemed to be better than his start right before the All-Star break. And he had a 2-week break. And I hope that pays dividends to get him ready to go down the stretch here and make his starts through August and September, because he has the temperament. I think he has the mentality of a starting pitcher, and the way he's gone about his business this year, I think that sets him up for success as he moves on with his major league career. But I hope to see that. Hope to see another good start from Andre Palante, who had a good one the last time out. Miles Michaelis has had a couple of good starts. He was the loser the other night, but he only gave up a couple of runs, and the Cardinals couldn't score any. And if they can give the starting pitching a little support, and if the starting pitching, Claves, can keep from falling behind 3-4 runs
early,
then I think we'll be in most every game.
No, I agree with you, John. And, it's hard to play catch up in the big leagues. These teams are really good. And if your pitchers can give you a chance early and let you score a couple of runs and then let the other guy try and catch up, I think it bodes for a pretty good situation for the team. But we just haven't seen a lot of that here recently. But if we can get that turned around, I really like our chances.
Well, I'm really happy that Brendan Donovan is still a Cardinal, and he is going to go out there and give his all. He's a leadership type player. I mean, I could understand a trade if you got half the Padre roster for him, but the Padres acquired everybody else's roster, and they'll have to sift through who they'll be sending off to the minor leagues and redistributing their roster before we get to the park. That's why I'm looking forward to getting over there early to see how everything shakes out for both teams.
Yeah, the Padres don't have a lot of guys left in their minor league system to trade to anybody at this point, John. I think they sent out, more than half of their top 20 prospects.
Yeah, they did, and they acquired some really, really good talent. And it's going to be a job for our friend Mike Schilt, Flaves, to handle all of that talent and make sure that it works as they make a run at the Dodgers.
Yeah, I mean, you can bring in all the good players you want, but if you don't have chemistry and you don't have transparency, then you're going to have some problems. And, Mike Schilt's been in a situation like this before where he's had new players be put on his doorstep. So if there's a guy who can get it done, I think it's Mike. It's going to be fun to watch, though. It's going to be fun to watch. I really would prefer watching if this was done before the trade deadline. But you know what? Maybe it's going to take 2 or 3 games for them to figure it out.
Yeah, it just might. And you're putting basically a new team together. Now they have some needs that were filled. O'Hearn is going to help them, and so is Laureano. Laureano can certainly go get the ball, and the way he's been hitting it for the last 3 or 4 weeks, looks like that he's back. And so they added some good pieces, not just in the pitching department. It doesn't hurt having a 102-mile-an-hour fastball thrower like Miller coming in. And they also got another pitcher in that deal, a left-hander for their bullpen. But what do you do with Suarez at the end? Questions all to be answered.
John Rooney, the voice of the Cardinals, is with us. John, earlier in the show, we talked about the fact that even though the trade deadline, when you're a selling club the way the Cardinals were, sort of automatically takes those conversations toward next year and the years beyond, you're just looking toward the future at the deadline. There are still 2 months here left to go, and the Cardinals are still a 500 ball club, not out of the race, at least based on the standings, albeit now they'll be competing with a much more shorthanded bullpen for the remainder of the season. For people who are thinking about what is left for the Cardinals as a fan in these remaining 52 games, what are you watching most closely? What are you most excited to monitor over these last 52 that's going to tell you something meaningful about the club, regardless of where this season ends?
Well, it's still the growth of Victor Scott, the second out in center field, and they've tried Ivan Herrera in left field, and watching him take to that position where they can keep his bat in the lineup and still have another left-handed bat in there as a DH when they come up against right-handed pitching. And I'm interested just to see how Gorman is able to hit the ball when he comes back, and to get Lars Nootbaar back in there. When the Cardinals were really cooking in May, they had Nootbaar leading off. Mason Wynn went into the number 2 spot, and it created some really good balance for the lineup. And I hope that those guys can get healthy, that Nootbaar can be back in there and perform, and the same thing for Gorman, because I think they're going to give him a shot at playing a little more at third base. He may play some at second to spell Donovan and move some pieces around, but just to see how they click and finish up, and to see how they compete, because that's one thing that has not changed from day one. The guys go out there with a level of competitive attitude, and they try their best to stay in games. It's been tough to score runs lately and try to find some openings, and the other team has found more openings than the Cardinals in the month of July. But guess what? That month's over. Let's start anew here and see if they can have a strong finish.
John, we appreciate your time. As always, enjoy San Diego and enjoy this series. Hopefully the Cardinals can put up a good fight against this retooled Padres roster, I should say.
Well, we'll see how that roster shapes up and what they do, and we'll see what the Cardinals do to compete, because that's one thing. They'll go out there and give the effort, and I look for more energy tonight, guys, because of the lower temperatures, and there'll be big crowds there.
Yeah, they have been pulling a lot of folks out to the ballpark. That's for sure. San Diego folks like to come out and see the baseball, so it should be a fun environment, even especially for a weekend series. John, thanks so much for your time.
All right, see you in a little bit, Claves.
You got it.
Voice of the Cardinals, John Rooney. You can hear him this evening, first pitch at 8:40 here on the Cardinals Radio Network. That's 8:40 Central Time here on KMOX and across the entire Cardinals Radio Network, powered by Gray Bar. We'll take one more break. When we return, wrap up the Gashouse Gang on 104.1 FM KMOX.
We are Missouri Farm Bureau Insurance, and we're here for all of life's wins. Like when you get a new car, or new boat, or new driver, or when your son moves out, but your mom moves in, or you find out you're expecting again, or when one rental property turns into 2, then 20, or you realize they're all in Tornado Alley. Life is full of life events, so call your Missouri Farm Bureau Insurance agent or visit mofbinsurance.com to find an agent near you, and we'll make sure you have the right coverage for each of life's wins.
We are Missouri Farm Bureau Insurance, and we're for the people of Missouri, in good times and in bad. We're for Missouri families and Missouri communities. We're for giving back to those communities and lifting people up. And when Missouri weather rips through our state, we're for helping put back the pieces. We're for brighter days and new tomorrows. We are Missouri Farm Bureau Insurance. And if you live in Missouri, we're for you.
Guys, Glover here. August is Pet Appreciation Month. Get 3 rooms of carpet clean starting at just $129, 15% off pet odor treatments, and take $50 off your air duct cleaning. Book online at zerorezstl.com or call 314-474-2020.
Like I said before, tariffs had absolutely zero effect on our equipment pricing. No manufacturer raised their prices. What has affected the pricing is the previous 4 years of these ridiculous mandates. I mean, I say ridiculous, it's shameful. But that being said, if you're told that you need a new system, or your air conditioner is bad, or you're looking to replace your system, if you want a common sense approach which works for you, your family, and your budget. When I say your budget, it never is what you want it to be on this equipment, but common sense approach, 15-20 minutes of your time, and explain to you your options. No Kool-Aid being handed out. I'm Bart Inman. That's Bart with a B, Inman with an I. The easiest way to get a hold of me with the easiest number, Missouri and Illinois, there's only one, 314-293-2600. Remember, 0% financing is available for most up to 60 months. Fantastic deal. God bless.
Tomorrow, some of us will wake up and it will be our last day on this earth. It will be unexpected and without warning. Each year, 250,000 people will die from medical malpractice, the third leading cause of death in America. 43,000 will die in a car or truck crash. 6,000 will die working on the job. I'm John Morgan of Morgan & Morgan, and we represent many of these families. It's awful. Unfortunately, many times some of these family members are not speaking and never get to say, I'm sorry or goodbye. If you're at odds with a loved one, listen closely. Pick up the phone. Call them. Say you're sorry. I promise a huge burden will be lifted from your heart and your soul will be renewed. Even if you're not wrong in your own mind, it doesn't matter. Death is bad enough. Death without closure and love will follow you the rest of your days. Trust me on this. Morgan & Morgan. Injured? Dial #law or visit forthepeople.com for an office near you.
Now back to the Gashouse Gang, sponsored by Saliga Heating and Cooling and by Anderson Hospital on 104.1 FM KMOX.
Nate Gatter, Mike Claiborne with you till the top of the hour on Gashouse Gang here on KMOX, talking about the Cardinals trade deadline, the departures of Ryan Helsley, Steven Matson, Phil Maton from the St. Louis bullpen, and the Cardinals beginning a series against the San Diego Padres on the road in Southern California this evening, 8:40 Central Time, first pitch. The network pregame will get underway at 7:45 this evening here on KMOX and across the network. Matthew Liberatore will be on the mound for the Cardinals, 6-8 with a 4.04 earned run average. Nick Pivetta has had an excellent season for San Diego, 10-3, 2.81 earned run average. Will toe the rubber for the Padres. Claibs, we started to talk about it a little bit, but even though the deadline is dominating the conversation, there's still baseball to be played tonight and this weekend, and there's still a series to look ahead at. San Diego retooled their roster as much as maybe anybody. The only other team in the big leagues that probably had a similar overhaul to their roster is Minnesota, and that was with departures, not with new arrivals. So this is a very different looking Padres roster than it was just a couple of days ago. And as you said, on the one hand, that means there's a lot of energy in San Diego, and there's going to be a lot of excitement about the ball club this weekend. On the other hand, maybe the Cardinals can benefit if it takes them a few days to get their legs under them.
Yeah, that's the hope here. The Cardinals split with San Diego last week, so we know we could play with them. But this is a different looking team, as will the Cardinals be. So, I just think you just show up and play. I don't think you can worry about anything else. And, with some guys, the trade deadline, thinking that maybe they're going to get moved, this may be the first day that some players can exhale and just say, all right, I'm going to get back to playing ball. I don't have to worry about being traded or released or being sent out. I'm here and I might as well take advantage of it. So I think that's how you have to approach it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, especially about guys, talked about it in the sort of reverse context with the Cardinals. Some of those guys who have been back and forth between Memphis and St. Louis, they know they're going to get an extended run now at the major league level because the Cardinals, frankly, only have so many options left in that bullpen right now, especially without adding anybody to the 40-man roster, which they could do, but they have not yet done. For the Padres, it's kind of the reverse. Guys who are still there are like, okay, well, and now we're all set and can kind of settle in for the remainder of this season. Matthew Liberatore will be on the mound for the Cardinals. Talked to John Rooney about him moments ago. Anything that you missed, you can go back and hear on the free Odyssey app in podcast form, including our first half hour with Matt Pauley and our conversation in the last segment with John Rooney. But he was talking about the start that Liberatore had against these Padres his last time out earlier or last weekend here in St. Louis. 4 1/3 innings, 1 run on 6 hits. And that's sort of been the theme a little bit for Libby, is that the starts have gotten a bit shorter. Even if he's still been effective, he hasn't been able to keep the same length. Now he's coming back, as John mentioned, after that 2-week absence. They were able to give him around the All-Star break, try to help him as he pitches to an inning count that he has not had before in his career. So it'll be interesting to see how much he has left. You'd think with the Cardinals' mindset right now, though, they're not going to push Matthew Liberatore in any game or for any reason, because this is about strengthening his arm, getting him this additional experience so that hopefully next year or the year after, if he's a key starter for them in a division race, they don't have to baby him down the stretch.
Well, you make a good point, but I think I'm at a point now where I am going to push him. If you want to be a top-end guy in a rotation on a good team, you're going to have to fight through barriers. And I know where he's probably at an innings limit compared to what he did last year. The whole role as a starter changes the complexion of how he takes these games on. And so I'm of the belief that I need to see more late in the season, because if you're going to be a good player on a good team, you better be ready to pitch in October. And what does that look like? Well, we don't know, because we got to get him through August. We got to get him through September. So I'm of the belief that, right now I'm challenging guys to give me more, because that's what's going to be needed if you want to be on a winning team.
It's a good point. And I do say, I think probably we would agree on this based on your take on it. I like how the Cardinals have managed it in trying to kind of massage this so that they feel like they're not pushing him too hard, but they are pushing him a little bit and he can keep pitching late in the season, as opposed to we're going to proceed like everything's normal up until we hit some limit and we're going to shut him down, which I think seems to me like it's not always productive. Certainly it's not allowing him to gather more experience and sharpen his mental approach for how he's going to handle these late season starts when maybe he's not physically 100%.
Yeah, you're right. And, here's the thing about being physically able. There are very few guys who can go through a season and wake up every day and say, I feel good. Most of these guys have some sort of ache or pain that they deal with as part of the season. And I think that when you're a young pitcher and you're trying to figure out the difference between pain and discomfort compared to injury. So, and here's the other item. Because we've only had one pitcher go down with an injury, the map would have been different, because you would have expected some other guys to be brought up earlier in the season, maybe some guys with more spot starts, but that didn't happen until recently. So it kind of threw the game plan off as far as innings usage. And I think that's one of the reasons why they kind of shut Liberatore down, because we expected somebody to go down and somebody was going to miss a start or two, but that didn't happen.
Let's talk about Michael McGreevy, who's going to start game 2 of this series tomorrow, because people spent a lot of time calling for him to be back in the majors. He had that month absence after his start against Chicago in late June. He came back up to pitch at Coors last week and then to pitch at home against San Diego. The start against the Rockies went really well. 7 innings, 1 run. I think everybody's feelings were kind of reinforced about he should have been here the whole time. Then the Padres start did not go well. 4 2/3, 7 runs, all earned. Probably his worst outing in the major leagues. Now, he's had a lot of good ones. He's set high standards for himself early in his career. What are you most zeroed in on when you watch Michael McGreevy over presumably a good number of starts he's going to get the rest of the way?
Well, I want to see how he gets people out because he's not necessarily a swing and miss guy. He has to have good defense behind him. But I want to see what his secondary pitches look like, along with when he doesn't have his good stuff, how does he still deal with a good batting order? Those are all learning things that he has to deal with. But overall, I like his approach. I know he's a guy that could be a value player in your rotation. But I just think he just needs more big league experience on how to get big league hitters out. Big league hitters are a little different than minor league hitters. Minor league hitters are more free swingers. Big league hitters have more of an approach, and they have the video and everything else to know how to attack a pitcher. So he's got to be able to learn how to make those adjustments in game.
Let's hit a couple more topics with that forward-looking eye again, because ultimately that's what this time of year is about, and that's what the remainder of this year is going to be for teams that are in the Cardinals position. That's just what the conversation is at this stage. You mentioned J.J. Weatherholt earlier, and where's he ultimately going to play, and when's he going to make it to the majors? There has been some speculation, maybe speculation is maybe too strong a word, but I think there's been at least some conversation about the possibility of him getting opportunities in center field if the Cardinals are not going to, because there aren't a lot of other places to put him, right? You mentioned they got two Nolans already who can play third base. Brendan Donovan mostly is at second base, and Nolan Gorman also can play there. Mason Wynn is the everyday guy at short. Only something's got to give on an infield spot, or you're giving him a try in center field, or trying to figure something else out. How soon do you think it's realistic to see Weatherholt in the majors? And do you think there's a realistic possibility that they give him a run out beyond the infield, or do you think it's one of those three spots?
I think it's one of those three spots. Center field is a very critical position. And to throw a guy out there who's never played it before, I think would be unfair, especially Victor Scott has turned out to be a better player defensively than we anticipated. Last year, he was trying to figure it out. This year, he's got a better idea. So I'm going to leave him alone, and I'm going to let him continue to grow.
Yeah, I think that's probably the way they most likely approach it. And again, we don't know how Chaim Bloom is going to approach any of these guys. For all we know, Chaim Bloom's going into the offseason thinking, yeah, Brendan Donovan's a really good player, but he's coming off a career year. I can get a lot for him, and I'm not sure I'm going to be allowed to re-sign him in a couple of years' time anyway. And that opens up some more time at second base because Nolan Gorman's going to play more at third because Arenado's going to take more days off. Or, maybe even Mason Wynn is if somebody called about him is if Chaim Bloom likes Weatherholt better. We have no idea how Chaim Bloom is going to evaluate the pieces in the Cardinals minor league system relative to the pieces he has in the major league level. We don't know what the interest level is elsewhere. My feeling is that this is going to be the busiest Cardinals offseason in terms of trades probably in a long time, because you have sort of this unique storm of a lot of good players who have some value to other teams, but a lot of roster redundancies that the Cardinals would like to clear if they can get fair value back for some guys. And secondly, a new manager of baseball operations who is coming in from outside the organization and inheriting a roster that looks like that. So not only does he have a roster with redundancies, he has a roster of redundancies made up of players who were not his guys, who he didn't choose, he didn't tie himself to.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a good thing for him. So he doesn't owe any of these guys anything. And at some point, he's going to have to make a tough decision on moving a player that's maybe popular or a player that we've come to like. Some you got to move on from somebody. It's plain and simple. You got to move on from some people because we've seen what some of them can do, and it's not enough to be a winning team.
Yeah, I think that's all there is to it, and I think Chaim Bloom probably is prepared to make those calls. If I were Chaim Bloom, and I'm very much not, but if I were, I think I'd be sort of excited about taking over this roster in particular because of the fact that there is redundancy. We've complained kind of consistently about the redundancy. We sometimes roll our eyes about the redundancies, but at the same time, that means there are a lot of pieces he can move around. He is not taking over a completely barren cupboard where he has to rebuild from nothing. He has some resources. It's a question of how he's going to allocate them and how he's going to move them around. And ultimately, it's going to fall on Bloom to make those decisions, but he's going to be empowered now to do that. He's, getting the keys, essentially. I think this deadline was already him starting to get the keys handed to him in some ways, that the the moves the Cardinals didn't have to make at the deadline, outside of the 3 relievers on expiring contracts, the other guys who maybe were rumored to be drawing interest or potentially part of a deal, the Lars Nootbaars, the Alec Burlesons, even Nolan Gorman's, Jordan Walker's potentially. None of those guys moved. And I think what John Mozeliak is saying, if you read between the lines when he talks about how they would have had to be blown away and they weren't blown away, what I hear is it wouldn't be fair to Heim to trade these guys unless it was objectively a package you have to trade them for. And so now it's going to be Heim Bloom's opportunity to make those decisions. For Mike Claiborne, Nate Gatter saying so long. Gashouse Gang here on 104.1 FM KMOX.
You're listening to Leaf Filter Radio, and the guru of gutter protection himself, Chris Coonahan, is here to take your most pressing leaf-related questions.
Hey, everybody. Chris here. I understand we have Ron on the line. Ron, where are you calling from?
Uh-oh. Ron, are you calling from a ladder?
Well, I was. I wanted to ask Chris what I need to do to get my gutters ready to have leaf filter installed.
Oh, Ron, you don't have to do anything. A Leaf Filter Trusted Pro will come out and clean out your gutters, realign and seal your gutters, and install Leaf Filter, America's #1 gutter protection system.
So I didn't need to get on this ladder?
Ron, Leaf Filter Trusted Pros are in your neighborhood and ready to help. Just visit leaffilter.com/deal to schedule your free gutter inspection and get up to 30% off.
Thank goodness. What was that site?
That's leaffilter.com/deal for your free gutter inspection.